Greetings, welcome to Terror Prime Live. I'm Darth Anonymous coming to you from TPLA HQ. With me today, we have our friend Ben Judkins, and joining us on the panel, we have our good friend from Silver Sabers Combat Academy, Faisal Mian. How you doing?
I'm doing good, guys. How you been?
Pretty good, pretty good. So we've been having a lot of people on. This is our 10th anniversary. And we're kind of going through this year, trying to find all the loose ends, so to speak. This is, I think, your first time on the program
on
here.
10, yeah.
So yeah. I'll give you a little introduction here for the people on the program. You're in the UK and you run Silver Sabers Combat Academy. Why don't we just throw it over to you and you can tell us more about what you guys do over there.
Wow. Yeah, sure. First of all, congratulations, man. 10 years. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
And that's including like a pandemic and
yeah.
and the rest of it as well. What do we do here? We play. We have a lot of fun. And there's all the highbrow stuff of like, the technical side of what we're trying to preserve and how we go about writing that into a modern syllabus. But really, at the end of the day, I think the revolution with the LED Saber is, yeah, sure, there are people who are into HEMO in a big way, and there are people who go and do the full contact night tournaments and stuff like that. But there's not many of them. And if you want to do kind of the work that we're invested in, which is studying like human movement and the strategy of one-on-one dueling, you need a medium to do that in where it's safe. And more importantly than safe, also fun. It's got to be so lighthearted that there's enough people doing it that we start getting some data. Right. and that's how we study, and so yeah, that's kind of what the LED Saber, because I'm traditionally teaching Tai Chi Chuan, that's my roots, that's the structure that I've worked with for decades now, and the LED Saber just comes along, and all of a sudden we're in a position where we can push hands with blades, right? And it's like, okay, well, what else can we do with it? Well, I can take a swing. And the next thing you know, we've got a new branch, and it just rolled from there. We didn't expect it to do what it did. I kind of was doing this for my kids, really, so that I could figure out a way of communicating with them some of the stuff that, I'd learned over the years. And then everybody wanted it. And, slowly, thoughtfully turning it into a sustainable business enterprise has been a learning experience. I really didn't ever expect to be a director of anything, let alone my own academy, right? But it is what it is, and they're doing really well. We've got, a few seasons of students now, and we're seeing fantastic retention rates, and we're seeing people challenging themselves and growing in ways and attempting things that they never thought that they'd be able to do. And all of this is done because the lightsaber is so much fun. It just makes it easy to just be committed to studying and working hard. And really, if it hurts too much, or the injuries are too frequent or too significant, then you're just not in the ring long enough to work anything out. You need to stick around for a few years, and for that, academy, syllabus, and progression, and that's where we're coming from, very much so. The outputs being obviously tournament and the competitive side of it, but really, I think for us, the highest goal is that free-form, spontaneous fight display, which is not done for victory as such. It's a gift to the audience. It's at the point where two professional combatants take a slightly different approach, where they say, we're doing this. Everything I give you is a gift, and everything my opponent gives me back is a gift. And with this exchange, somehow we have to construct a narrative that the audience can follow and recognize as an exchange that's not choreographed. And because of that, the emotional responses from the players are genuine. And even though they're not trained actors, ta-da! And you're like, yeah, that's my dream.
Right. Yeah. So kind of like the Werner Herzog, school of directing, which is if you're working with non-actors, don't make them act. Like, actually have them, yeah, we're actually going to pull that boat over that hill. Why? I don't know. Because I want people to believe you're pulling a boat over the hill. Now, of course, that's not necessarily the optimal way to do it nowadays. But anyway, yeah, I think one of the things that you said, obviously people who are followers of us will have latched onto a lot of what you said as being very common threads that we share. When we started back in 2012, that was our first thing, was like come up with a, something. Most of it was choreography there, so that was kind of what people were taking in at the time. But just giving some sort of background to it. Even in choreography, it helps for the people to have some sort of training, right?
Yeah, totally.
I think The Matrix probably proved that to people in the West, right? It was like, oh my God, how did they get these people? Well, they actually just trained them to do it.
It was like 6-7 months of 5 days a week or something like that.
Yeah, it was crazy.
But
that that's the way they did in Hong Kong, and that's how they.
And it works. Yeah,
that's how it was produced.
The only shortcut is the hard path. Everything else is the dead end, right?
The only way around is through.
Is straight through. That's it.
Right. Yeah. So that's very common. And then also we always talk about this too, where we talk about the fun, we talk about this. Jared Miracle, our friend, calls it pleasure testing, right? That instead of pressure testing, pleasure test your art, because if you're not enjoying it, you're not doing it, yada yada.
Yeah.
And it's that fun, that piece of imagination, that bit of involvement that people have. I mean, let's face it, in the West, all of us here actually are instructors of Chinese martial arts, even though they're different. But the thing about it is we're doing this outside of China, so there's no cultural background to any of it. Lightsaber comes with a culture, right? It comes with a set of stories and feels and characters and topics, right? That brings all of that into, and that's why we see so much stuff coming out of Star Wars, from cosplays, prop building to this,
But to an extent, there is a fictional universe that defines how these things are supposed to be used, right? But if we just take a step back and look at it from slightly differently, the stories were described by artists who are trained in the classical arts, and the language of each of the trilogies has been quite distinct in terms of how the lightsabers have been deployed. I appreciate the artistry of the prequel trilogies, for example, and the wushu is absolutely incredible for the most part. The Darth Maul fight stands out for me as being singularly the most incredible cinema experience really of the lightsaber thing happening. Can you hear the psychos outside? I live in the middle. I live in the middle of the center. Don't worry. But the original trilogy was very much. I mean, people talk about kendo, but you don't really see very much kendo, do you? You see a slightly more longsword kind of traditional Shakespearean longsword kind of style of theatrical combat, and it's done well. It's done really well. The fights on Bespin, for example, it's not just the swordsmanship. It's the way it's shot. It's the way the color is graded. All of it comes together, and you've got. I want to recreate that majesty, that impact. That the postures were so clear, and the intent of each of the characters was, you couldn't misinterpret it. You can go to the circus and go, wow, this and wow, that. And it's all, but it's not the same as seeing somebody expressing emotion. And that's what really, for me, captivates. The sword is a channeling device for our hearts and our minds. And, I don't want to just see like fireworks. I want to see it like an artist with a calligrapher's pen telling me a story.
Yeah, and there's and the thing about the lightsaber, and if we go more mundane than this very erudite kind of artistic thing, I talk to fencing coaches a lot, and one of the worst things that one of the most difficult things to get their students to do is basics and drills, right? But you hand them a glowing lightsaber, well, all of a sudden, doing drills isn't so boring anymore, right? And so you can get people to do that. And then, as I've always said, you hand somebody a sword, even a fake one, like a costume sword or whatever, the first thing they're going to ask you is it sharp or is it real? Right? Both of them mean the same thing. Will it hurt me? But nobody ever does that if you hand them a lightsaber.
A lightsaber, no, right? It's in fact us who have to tell them that this will hurt you. Be careful.
Right. Yes, you have to go, whoa. Okay, it's a toy. Be careful.
Yeah.
That thing can still pack a wallop.
So I'm just gonna throw it back a second, because
yes,
the reason I wanted to bring up the movements in the original trilogy is because the shapes that they're using are not fantastical. Kinesiologically, those were sound. The mathematics of what you was watching was genuine. And, a lot of wushu doesn't actually do that. It's very glittery and it strikes and this and that, but that what you're watching is a circus show because it doesn't have the kinesiological imprint that that is maximum force be delivered in a minimum area. It's just a spin or a trick or something like that. But in the original, when you see Darth Vader taking swings and he's going through chunks of the scenery and stuff like that, that's something else. And Luke's forward archery stance is not bad for a guy. That was good stuff. And the cuts were not delivered as random sort of omnidirectional things. Every cut was in line with the blade of the palm of the hand. And compare with the final trilogy, for example, where they're just swinging them like baseball bats, right?
Yeah. And I'm not. So I obviously I come from a Hong Kong background, right? My where I take most of my inspiration, what awes me, is the Hong Kong style, right? So to me, even when I was a kid, right, the lightsaber fight between Vader and Obi-Wan so disappointed me. I was like, oh, what are they doing? You know, it's just like, oh, and okay, you know, it's like that because it is genuine. It's an old man versus a guy in a mask.
Yeah.
Like that's what it will look like.
All right, okay. I might have to retract a lot of my
but see, the
earlier
thing is
statements, right?
like the Bespin fight and those fights from the original trilogy. I mean, the Bespin fight, there's not much actually going on there, right?
No.
It's very simple choreography. The swordplay pretty much stops halfway through, right? And it's all acting and all emotion and all directing, right? It was it Kirshner was on Empire, right? And that's what brings it through. On the other hand, you look at the recent Clone Wars thing where they have Darth Maul versus Ahsoka, and they had the motion capture stuff. The thing about the motion capture technology is like we do lots of exaggerated stuff in kung fu and wushu and stuff like that. Do that stuff in reality or whatever, but you kind of have to do a lot of that for the mocap. Which makes it there, and you also have to kind of like exaggerate just so you can get your character through, because it's like wearing another skin, and it's like, so that's why Darth Maul moves like Ray Park. Ahsoka moves like that other stunt person that they had, mocapping her. And it was
reality check
brilliant.
Here. Let's get to the point here. What we were seeing in the Clone Wars, and let's not also forget the motion captured sequences for the videos for the Old Republic video game.
Right.
Right. Let's not ignore that. That was some of the finest fight choreography that, and it's just a trailer for a video game. And it was, and then you can see that work seeded certain scenes in certain places through the Clone Wars stuff that came later on, and you can see it's all coming in together, and you in turn from that we're getting stuff like Arcane. This is
what I mean by there's a culture behind this stuff, right? It goes beyond what's actually written down in this, and maybe Ben can speak on this because this is your area of expertise, but it's not just people identifying with the stories, right? But people really, integrating them into the way they live and the way they think, and becoming very, not just emotionally attached, but kind of, something. The only thing I have for it is ethnographically attached to this, where it doesn't matter, like it doesn't matter how good, how bad, if you like it or not or whatever. These are the things that now that inform that.
Yeah, the amount of ownership that you see in the fan community, where you get these fan creators in Star Wars. I love Star Trek, right? I was watching Star Trek last night. Huge Star Trek fan, but it's interesting to look at the difference in the communities, and that Paramount, if we were doing with Star Trek what we're doing with Star Wars, Paramount would shut us down so fast, right? Yes. It would just not be allowed, right? And different properties, and they do assume these different cultures around them. And
here's the irony.
And Star Wars is very participatory. It is. So I do see what you mean, Chad, that you end up with people really kind of, I don't want to say they're living it, because this implies they're delusional in some way. And people,
right.
But people are contributing, part of themselves to it. And then the amazing thing is you see the uptake of it on the corporate end that then feeds it back into the community. So you get this, kind of recursive back and forth between the corporate end and the community, and they're in a conversation with each other. And then you get really interesting things that emerge out of it, right? Some of which are novels that are better forgotten. And then occasionally innovations in lightsaber combat that they never would have reached on their own.
Yep. I mean, it's sharing is caring, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you know, if the boundaries have to be porous, they've got to be. You know, otherwise anything in isolation is going to starve. So you have to have this dialogue between the creators and the audience. I mean, I do have beef with people, audience members who identify with characters or stories so strongly that they believe that they own it. And it's like, no, it was a gift. It's a gift, right? Guys, if you want to write a story and you don't like what's been written or whatever, and you've got issues with whatever socio-political reflections you may or may not see, then go and write your own stories, man. I mean, like they wrote it for a reason. They're trying to communicate something with you guys. And yeah, I'm not talking.
But here's the thing about that though. It's like they can complain all they want. They can cry to the skies until they're blue in the face. It's not going to change nothing. It's like, well, I don't like this chapter of the Bible. Well, you're going to have to integrate it. You know,
it's there. Yeah.
I think that this, and again, if anybody has any insight on this stuff like this, but I equate it to the Haitian religion of Vodun, right? There's a saying that my teacher would always, Marilyn Holberg, who did a lot of research on Haitian Vodun, and there's a saying that says like 80% of Haiti is Catholic, 100% of Haiti is Vodun. Right. Because Vodun as a religion is an extremely participatory religion, right? It's not some sit in pews, have somebody preach at you, right? They are like enormous parties of just complete, you know, I don't know if you know anything about it, but
I'm a lot further away, I think, than you guys.
Yes,
are,
the gods of Haiti, the Loa, who you can equate in the same way with like Jungian archetypes that you do characters in Star Wars, right?
Right. Okay.
And funnily enough, their Lord of the Graveyard is often depicted on their altars with Darth Vader. I kid you not. But anyway, they're supposed to come in and they possess the priests, and you basically get to party with the gods. That's kind of the whole thing, right?
This sounds like full on Neil Gaiman territory, right?
Oh, Neil Gaiman's way into that because of my and all that stuff.
I mean, the idea that archetypes have to evolve, because even though they represent again, if you watch the Sandman stuff, that was phenomenal. I mean, I know it's changed and some people didn't like some of the changes, but it's like, well, hang on, guys, this is being shown around the planet. Like, you know, and also, quite frankly, he's made it quite clear that death is perceived individually, let alone regionally. So it's like, just let go. As long as the story is still there for us. I mean, they're going to refilm the original trilogy. We know this is going to happen. It might be 10 years. It might be 20 years. It's going to happen. Just, let's deal with it now before it happens.
You know, with Sandman or something, or any of this stuff, right? It's like, we'll bring it back to Star Wars. Luke in Last Jedi. Everybody's like, oh, I hated Luke. He was so... It's like, I love that. I was like, that's great. That's a great thing to explore. You know, the frailty of these things. You take your heroes, you make them, you know, see them being defeated not by the big monster, but by time and by age and despair and all this other stuff. That's very classic.
And thinking you failed your students.
Exactly.
Right. Not that we as martial arts people and martial arts instructors know anything about this.
Right.
But I mean, I was watching that and it's like, God damn, this is like the most realistic thing I have ever seen in Star Wars.
Yes.
It's close to home.
Exactly. You know.
Right. So I mean, I again, it's art, and there are consistencies and inconsistencies, like, you know, hyperspacing through a superstar destroyer or whatever. It's like, well, why didn't they just put an X-wing on autopilot and hyperspace it into the center of the Death Star twice? And stuff like that. It doesn't make sense, but essentially it doesn't matter, because I have to just, I mean, I'm watching it on a screen and it's a story. I take that disbelief, and I've already surrendered it because it's Star Wars, right? It's Star Wars. Okay, they've worked out how to hyperspace through ships. We'll accept that. Let it go. But
well, and that's I think that's the core to what we do here, because we don't have real access to that reality. I mean, now we have like places like Galaxy's Edge and Scum and Villainy Cantina and Star Wars Celebration and all that kind of stuff. But it's this is a way that we make it real. And as much as we look at the fantasy, and as much as we argue about what can and cannot be done within canon and all this other stuff, when we do it, we are governed by the laws of the universe in which we live.
This hand, it doesn't do this when I hold a sword. No, it does this. Yeah, right. Well, I mean, these are the principles that have been preserved over thousands of years, partially because you don't get a second chance in a battlefield. You need to make that first cut, every cut count, right? So if you're doing this, there's no power. You do this, it's going to come properly. This is mathematics. It's just the laws of science, right? And then secondly, people who do this stuff end up really straining the carpals. They really cause a lot of damage to the wrist. The impacts can be quite heavy. You can't pull the blow properly because you've only got a tiny bit of meat to stop your hand going too far, right? Whereas if you're doing this, it's coming from the core, and that gives you so many degrees of control. And at the end of the day, even though like tournament is tournament, and it's not a factor in display. In display, you're totally responsible for the safety of your partner in the work that you're doing. But in tournament, this is one thing that's come up again and again. How do we judge objectively what constitutes brutality? What's going on? How do we measure control as that, as people who've been doing this for a very long time? When you see a strike, what's the difference? What makes you call? Because I mean, if somebody delivers an excessive hit against somebody who's built to withstand that blow, they shrug it off and go, does that mean the hit's not excessive? Do you then not card it because the person was unaffected by it? And then a hit of half that weight against someone a quarter of that size puts them out of action for 3 weeks. And
well, not even that. You can do the same. You can do the same person in a different location.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. The difference
not
between
every
that
target.
and that, right? Yeah.
Right. There's a reason why there are certain areas which are protected in all athletics, right? A cup is protected not just because you don't want to get kicked in the balls because it hurts, right? But there are a host of crazy neurological injuries that you can sustain from trauma to that area.
Back of the head.
And so I had a student for a while who was a neurosurgeon, and he said he was not so worried about the back of the head as he was about the back of the neck, right? Like here. This does not take a lot to hemorrhage, and so I mean, that's the thing.
If I may, I mean, I'm fortunate enough that I run a 5-star clinic above this studio with my brother, and we've seen injuries coming. And the reason we did the therapy is because as training, we start to learn to fix ourselves. You get good at that, people start asking you to help them, and then eventually, a couple of ages down the line, you're a therapist. we see injuries. We see the injuries, right? And what you're describing, back of the head stuff, you know, stab to the throat stuff, these are lethal hits that are 1 in a million, right? 1 in a billion. They're very unlikely to happen unless people have like either no training or no control. And people with training can have no control on a bad day. Let's remember that, right? That's not the issue that I'm seeing that actually affects students who get injured. A light touch delivered repeatedly to exactly the same spot over a 3-hour session, getting hit 20, 30 times in the same spot with a light touch, with a polycarbonate bead, moving at a certain speed, even if it's pulled, tomorrow you're walking, you know, you're waking up with tissue damage in that space and it will be swollen. That's it, end of. And there are certain places where that's acceptable and there are certain places there are not, right? The body is designed to withstand certain types of damage. And there are you know, if from here, this is where your shoulder hinges from. From here, all of that bone going from here to the point on your shoulder, that clavicle, that is totally exposed for, you know, so we have to have something that covers that. The actual acromion points here, these on the anterior surface are accessible with your fingertips. So that is, you know, hit here, that's meat, no problem whatsoever. Hit above it, it's meat, but hit it on that spot, that is directly penetrable, right? We've got the same problem at the anterior superior iliac spine, just where your hips, the crest there, that is also exposed. You've got floating ribs here, which, you know, they're designed to take impact up to 30 miles, 40 miles an hour. But the reality is that the point on the, you know, it's got a 4-foot lever on it. It's moving over 100 miles an hour. And not from a deliberate excessive hit, repeated light contacts will have the same trauma caused as a single large hit. It won't penetrate as deep, but the tissue damage will be significant. On the elbows, we don't see hits here. This is not the problem. So if you're wearing skater gear, if you're wearing biker gear, this is the point that's protected with the foam and that's the epicenter of the cut. But if you look at sort of Milanese plate armor and sort of stuff that was designed for combat, they protect the anterior here, because this is where you're going to get hit, not here. They have a plate that comes around on both sides. So we are in a place where we're now getting that data because we're getting the participation numbers. And we're seeing tournaments with, I mean, the stuff we did in Paris in July was nearly 100 participants. We do much smaller parties ourselves because we like to keep a much tighter rein on proceedings. We want to make sure that there are enough arbitrators per arena and the rest of it. So we run smaller events, but we've run enough of them now that we've got the data and we're seeing where those hits are coming in. For the most part, you know, it's a contact sport, it's a martial art. You're gonna get hurt, right? Pain is unavoidable. But injury, and in particular long-term injury, is unacceptable. And I think, you know, after Paris, I saw a couple of injuries on my fighters. And had I been aware of those injuries earlier in the event, I would have pulled my team, I think, sadly.
Yeah, well, the issue with injury is definitely one that obviously comes up when you're dealing with any type of contact sport. You know, my background being from, you know, athletics here, collegiate athletics here, and my family business of an athletic club, and I've been a trainer for years and stuff. There are just, you know, vulnerable areas which are easily protected, you know.
Yeah, it doesn't take much.
But it's something that I think that people who did not come from backgrounds in athletics or sport or anything, right? This is something that I don't think anybody's ever heard of. right? When you're in this, when you're in athletics, in any type of sport, right, whether it be basketball, tennis, whatever, like lightsaber, whatever, injury prevention is a key part of your training.
Yeah.
It's always there, right? Because you will get injured, and that will take you out of training, and then you will regress, and then you must train back up to your usual standard, and that's very difficult. And unfortunately, and this happens a lot just in regular martial arts too. I call it the hump, right? Where the novelty of the thing wears off, and then all you've got left is the work, right? The unfun stuff, right? Like, just do it again, and you know, you have to wait.
Yeah.
You know, and that
goes,
yeah, but it's something that we tried to bring here, and that's the reason we do the drills and all of that, is to train proper biomechanics. Now, yes, what you're talking about with hitting with brutality is definitely a concern in that. The other concern, though, is also, you know, proper training, proper movement, because
technique.
Yeah, because you in every sport you have overuse injuries that are indicative of the sport. Now, this sport has not been around long enough to accurately judge any overuse particular injury that might come here, but you can guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Looking at the population, you know, what types of things are going to go, and I'm going to be guessing there's going to be lots of tennis elbow going around, a lot of shoulder problems,
a lot of knee strains as well,
a lot of knees,
that
kind of thing.
Also for people, you know, who, I mean, lunging is actually a very sophisticated technique to do it correctly, and people just throwing themselves out there, plantar fasciitis, and it's an absolute bit.
Mm-hmm.
It takes ages to heal, and you know, and you can't not go to work to let it heal, so it takes even longer. Yeah, it's just like not being able to put you. It's just small things, like, you know, and again, there are always grassroots football teams and hockey teams and whatever and what have you, but it's really important now that, you know, we professionalize. We have to get our stuff together. We have to, you know, when we talk about brutality, at the very first, I think accountability is something that needs to be there. If somebody enters, then who is putting their hand up and saying that they take responsibility for the training of that person? And if they've got no, you know, who's introducing them to the event? Do we know? Are we just going to allow anybody who has never trained before to turn up, and we're not going to check at all?
Right. Well, so there's a couple of ways that we, as organizations and stuff like this, do that kind of thing, right? Like, with us, with our rule set, you can't thrust. Certain targets are, you know, like, you can make contact with the back of the neck and the head, right? But you can't target it, right? So obviously you're going to have contact with it. That's why you cover, you wear those things anyway. Those are some of the ways that we kind of build safety into our competition. How about you? What do you guys do usually?
Well, I mean, you know, of all the failed projects on my desk, I think the projects that have failed the most are protective gear. You know, I kind of got the designing of lightsabers for tournament use. I'm not a particularly elegant saber maker or anything, but like this stuff. See, this is just a regular, typical mask, right? The particular thing about these masks is they have a strap that goes around the back, and they normally have a cup here. So it's a 3-point harness on the back, where the cup sits on the back of the just above the occiput, and it creates a really, really comfortable. So this mask actually sort of sits on a cradle above your head like that. It's really nice. So what we designed, and we put these, it's just cosplay foam, right? And you can see it actually extends down and not only covers the back of the neck, but also the upper part of the back or the spine there as well. And I mean, I'm wearing a hoodie, so it's not going to fit snug. And I'm also wearing this. Give me a sec. And it's on. And it's off. On and off that quickly. And it weighs nothing because it's CF foam. It's EVA foam, right? So one of these, you can add these to a regular mask for about $30, $40. It's not much. That's if you get it off the shelf. If you want to make one yourself at home, it takes 20 minutes. You know, you need a box cutter and some foam. But you need a half decent mask to fix it too. Number one. I picked up a new pair of gloves just yesterday so we're actually sponsored by Leon Paul, for those people who don't know. So I'm always sort of pushing out and saying, Leon Paul have made this for us, have done that for us. And they are brilliant. But again, they are a sustainable business. And we at the moment are not organized enough for any business on their sort of level to get invested in LED Saber, because there's no consensus on what we actually need as equipment. So they'll make something and it will appeal to 20% of the market. So what's the point? Until we've got, so this is what I've been using as a glove for years now, 2-3 years. It's leather. I will pass it down to my kids at some point. And yes, as you can see, I retain full ability to muse. I can put my saber on and off because that's just a fencing glove underneath. It's just a fencing.
Is that Leon Paul? Did they make that glove?
No, this was bespoke. They made the underglove, the leather on top. I've shown them the prototypes for all of this stuff, and their opinion at the moment is people who need this stuff are going to have to simply pay for somebody to make it for them, because there's no cost efficiency in making this in thousands when only 40 people around the world are going to buy them, right?
So
no point.
Actually, that type of glove, that one. Yeah, I know that one.
Yeah, this is a good glove. The only problem
the
is
Kevlar glove.
Yeah.
I hate that thing.
We're getting it remade. We're going to run a copy of this. We're just going to change the design slightly. The basics are all there. We'll put a triple leather plate in the fingertips over the top to reinforce it. Replace this, whatever it is. I don't know. But listen.
It's not Kevlar.
Well, listen to this, right?
Yeah, it's plastic. It's just plastic. They call it Kevlar.
Look, it's inside out by my thumbs.
Yeah.
It's like you're going to hit that at 100 miles an hour with a polycarbonate blade, and this is going to protect you, is it, right?
So the thing about it is they call it Kevlar. It's not Kevlar, and Kevlar wouldn't even work for what we want. Kevlar is like to prevent you from getting
the wrong
touched.
thing.
You know,
Wrong thing.
it doesn't do anything to pad you out.
Nope, and neither does D3O actually. All the Newtonian fluid stuff, I've tested a lot of it. I've been through that process. I've got a desk full of offcuts of materials that we've tried, and the simple facts of the matter are that D3O is too heavy to be useful to us with the amount of coverage that we need, and also the actual impact profile is too narrow for D3O to effectively. Remember, it's a curve. So it kind of pushes that fluid out, and you still get penetration, and it hurts. Okay, so let's dump that. The best thing you need is a laminate. Now, the laminate would have to be a hard layer that disperses the incoming kinetic energy across in a lateral, and then beneath that you have an absorbent foam, which then absorbs any remaining sort of vertical forces, and that is. You know, the polycarbonate blade has no momentum because it doesn't weigh anything. So the kinetic energy can be significant because it's moving at a rate, but the actual weight, the momentum is nothing. I mean, repeated hits at full power to the head, yes. Micro concussions are a thing, but we have referees who should black card that in an instant.
Well, you know, and you were talking about a 3-hour training session. That's where gloves come in, right? The repeated strikes over and over again that cause problems that I ever saw running a club, they were all to the thumb. They're right here. I mean, fingertips will stop you. That will. That
Right,
will.
show me that. Show me that. Where did you
Up
get
to the
that one,
thumb,
Chad?
You know, yeah.
Yeah, so this one, as people probably know, is a pro gauntlet. This has been in years in development. It's a
$600,
HEMA glove.
$400.
Yeah, exactly. It's expensive, but so is hand surgery.
Yeah, I know. I'm just.
And I'm telling you, man, like, yeah, this
Yeah,
is.
I know. Okay, you're
This
combing
is.
your beard with your glove on. Oh, well, shut up.
You're looking right.
But this is what
Like
we
this.
need.
Yeah.
We need that, but not $600, right?
Right.
You know,
Right.
There has to
it
be a midway.
accessible, but we need that capability.
On the other hand, no pun intended, how much are people spending on their sabers? Anyway, but yeah, so this uses hard plates, right? Plastic, and then it's got this nice glove underneath it, or
so
whatever.
what happens when the glove goes? Do you have to replace the whole thing, or do you keep the plastic?
Oh, no, you can replace the plastic pieces. You can adjust the plastic pieces. It's literally like an actual armored glove, just made of plastic. It's like an actual armored gauntlet. It's pretty awesome. And
Chad, I need that money.
So it also has these special fingertip protectors, right? So one of the things about fingertip protectors, as we know, I'm going to do a full review on this sucker, but anyway, is like you trade off sensitivity for protection, right? If you have your fingertips really protected, then they're like in a shell and you can't quite feel through them. These have these shells that come together in this like little Y pattern. So you have a little bit of feeling right down the middle.
Do you get that clash when you do this?
Nope.
So that
you don't feel like your fingers are separated. This feels like you're just wearing like a leather glove.
Because I've had the other inserts that you put in, and it's literally like you got 5 like morning stars on the end of your hand.
Yeah. No, this is very integrated. I love these things. Obviously,
yeah. Now I can see you do. I see you do. Well, I mean, they need to establish deeper roots as a company so that they can actually offer a cheaper sort of. I mean, if I could get 80-90% of that protection for half the price, we'd have a much more viable market, really.
Yeah.
And like this is exactly what I'm talking about, right?
I think the American market too here is ruined by the readily available, cheaper than food lacrosse gloves. Right? You can go anywhere and get lacrosse gloves, which work pretty well. And
you might as well wear a boxing mitt, right?
No, most of them are pretty slim.
Right. You see, now this is, I mean, it's not so much a contention. It's just a difference, right? Culturally speaking, we are predominantly two-handed. And the glove requirements do change if you're two-handed all of the time. Like the gloves you were just showing me, the Pro Gauntlet, clearly you can use that across. You could probably draw a bow with that, you know? Whereas the lacrosse gloves, when you're wearing them, they start to interfere because the hands just don't. All of this stuff, when you're going around here with two hands, you need to be able to do stuff like this at times to be able to get certain changes. And it just blocks it. And where you're fighting one-handed, like, for example, our friends in the Lightsaber League, Light Speed League, the way they fight is shoulder leading, 1 foot forwards and 1 hand forwards. And with that style of fighting, you know, having an armored glove, it doesn't really matter how large the padding is around the glove because the strikes aren't coming, they're not moving around the wrist in the same way. The two-handed weapon actually orbits, the orbit point can be in between the grip. And that means you need to be able to do this from time to time. And that puts a complete, and this is exactly why we've got this headache where trying to find a manufacturer to invest in getting the kit that we need onto shelves that we can purchase.
So here's an out of the box, question for you. Have you ever tried the HEMA clamshell gloves? Because the longsword guys in HEMA, that's what they all use, right? And that's a two-handed weapon, and like 90% of them use the clamshells.
Yeah, but at the same time,
so
right, sorry,
there is a caveat with the HEMA stuff, right? With the clamshell stuff, they make fetters that have handles that will specifically accommodate those types of gloves.
Yep, that's true.
So there is that. I'm very primarily two-handed swordsmanship too, and lacrosse gloves don't actually restrict you.
I could much. Get used to them.
At least,
all I've done is try them.
At least they don't do it enough that it's going to shy people away from going, wait, I can pay $10 versus
right. No, yeah. I get you. Yeah.
So it's like
point made.
There's a point like where we that there's that, and that I think is that's the wrench that's being thrown into our particular pot over, or that mixed metaphor there.
Well, I mean, so it would be a relatively simple task, right? The actual shape of the plates isn't that complex, but if you took a $10 lacrosse glove and you reduced the thickness of the foam to a third and increased the density, and then you put a really thin laminate of hard plastic over each of those foam plates, that would be a much more slender glove, right? But I'm not in the States. I don't have access to those manufacturers. Someone needs to go and do it. And the only way that they're going to turn around and say yes is if we turn around as a community across however many different academies and say, we all want those gloves, right? That the manufacturing solutions exist, but the problem is to set the machine up to make what we want costs $20,000, right? So therefore, we need to turn out at least 1,000 of these things at a certain price before we even get to talk to them in the office. And each academy has what, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 people, right? There's what, 50, 60 of us around the world, and we're all doing our own thing. Yeah. So it's like we don't have a voice. So there is no one to turn around and say, look, we need, I mean, fencing masks I've actually found are brilliant. I can't think of any reason to change them that wouldn't actually compromise the structure or the price.
Yeah. And quite frankly, look into overlays, right? You can make overlays that are pretty awesome. You can make
them beautiful. Yeah. You can make them beautiful.
Protect the back of the head. We use overlays most of the time. Now over here, we use like the Spez has a back of the head protector that you can buy. That's just goes into a
yeah.
But even better are the Red Dragon hoods, because
they're too heavy, too hot.
They just go over there. They're not that heavy. Come on. Plus, they make getting hit in the head much quieter. It's not.
That I'll give you. But I mean, the main thing is this, and this is again another cultural difference that we're seeing across the pond. Is over 50% of the students in the Silver Sabers are actually girls. And we've got big girls, but we've got little girls as well. And, when you look at the kit that's out there, a lot of it is designed for guys with big beards and honking hands. And, we got to look outside our own needs, and we have to think about mass participation, and we have to appreciate that it's easier to find solutions for people who are closer to the center of the bell curve. But as soon as you start talking about including people who might be quite frail, and this is the first exercise they're doing since they left school, right? And you're like, okay, well, yeah, we're going to slowly build you up to it. Put this mask on. And then all of a sudden put this and that and this and that and that and this. And then they can't, and it's just because the stuff's designed for big hairy guys doing HEMA. And I have an 800 Newton jacket in the back that hits so nice. I've worn it twice, and one of them once was for a video for Leon Paul, right? And why don't I use it? I mean, it's amazing protection, and it's just, if I wore that for a 4-hour session, it would take me 4 days to dry it. Yeah, it's just not practical. It's just not for somebody who, again, this is something incredible that we can do with the LED saber that we don't see with other swords. You can train every day, every single day. You don't need to have a dodo. You don't need to have a permit to go to the park, right? Mm-hmm. It's a piece of plastic strapped on a tube. Yeah, on a torch with a tube. Boom, bam, right? You can practice every single day. And a lot of the stuff that goes with the culture and trappings of being a big sword warrior, blah, blah, blah. And that stuff to put on a shelf to show off when people come in through the door and out. If you actually go, remember when we were in the, in the backyard with the masters, and they're just standing there in their pajamas, like in slippers, with flag hanging out their mouth. Go over here. And that's training every day. And that's what Master Lee used to say. And he passed down to Michael, and Michael told to me, he goes, training is like eating rice. It has no more significance than it is that common. It is that much integrated into your life. It's just something that you're doing. If you're walking somewhere, you should be doing it correctly. If you're sitting in a chair, you should be doing it correctly. It's like eating rice. And the lightsaber lets us do that because it's just so friendly.
Hey, Faisal, can I ask you about another production, frustration or opportunity, another project of yours? So I am a huge fan of JQ Sabers. As a matter of fact, I bought JQ Sabers for my school. I probably have a dozen of them in a bag under my bed right now. I have 1st gen and 2nd gen Pilgrims.
Right, yeah.
And for obvious reasons, they stopped production of them.
Yep,
I heard you took over. Are they still made? Are you making them? Is Leon Paul making them? How's this working?
How long you got? I have some evolutions. The working title we went with in the design phase was Evolution, because that's what it was. It was actually one of Darren's projects from about, I think, 2006, 2008, something like that. Yeah. They had something called the Caliburn, and me and Nick Musson from the Free Fighters Guild, we sort of founded the Silver Sabers together, and he's reverted back to steel, which is where his passion really lies. But I do what I do, and I'm sticking with it. So Darren showed us these things, and I was like, change it, just tweak. And Nick's like, and slowly this became the evolution. The evolution of the Caliburn was, and then it becomes the Pilgrim as a product line on JQ Sabers, and then Darren asked me to look after the combat saber side of things, because it's not a lot of traffic, to be fair. They're not intricate weapons, so there's not a lot of a margin on them, and they need to be made to be indestructible, and that's actually, for a person of Darren's talent and skill, it's actually demeaning. Just put extra on it. Well, why? Just trust me, it needs extra what? All of it. And it's boring work. It's really tedious, because it's just engineering. There's no art. And so I said, yeah, okay, I'll take over the evolutions. And then we were installing them and putting them out. And as I'm doing this, you have to remember, I'm learning how to understand what he's put in of the inside. I've only designed the ergonomics. I've only looked at it from a certain perspective. The actual rest of it was always, Darren, that's your headache. I don't care how you fit it in there. Just do it this way. I need it to do this, and I ideally make it look like that. And he did it. But when we realized how he was doing it, I was just like, this is really hard to install. This is a single piece of aluminium from here to here with a button in the middle that has to be held on with a nut and a washer, and we can't put thread lock on it to keep it in place. And then you've got to light the switch as well, and that does not light the vibration because it's a tiny little LED. And then you start to see the returns coming back, the ones that go wrong. And you start to take, again, data. Why did this fail? Why did this fail? And you start to see a pattern. And you're like, right, okay, we need to just completely either redesign that component or remove it. And this became the next sign of, if the next evolution emerged, and it's called the Elysium. So I have a box of evolutions, which I can install, but I will charge you because I hate doing it. And I have Elysiums as well. And Elysiums are, I've got the prototypes here. This is a prototype. So they don't look like this anymore. They're a lot prettier. But just let me get some of the rubber off the end. What you've got here is the recharge port and the button are just there. And that pommel takes no load, right? Because it's in line, right? If it was a separate pommel like that, then there'd be a lot of shearing forces going on here. But with this in line like that, there's none. So we can hold this in place with just a friction grub screw, right? So in the event, I had Ben Lavers. He's one of, he's a captain of our tournament team. Fantastic fighter to watch. And in the last tourney, he was here, and he took a hit right on the end, and it smashed the switch. And he runs over, he goes, I need a new saber. I'm like sitting there, I'm like, okay, what happened? He goes, I took a hit. And he goes, and inside, so he's going looking for a new saber. I take an Allen key, undo that one bolt, take the end off, 2 JSTs off, get a new pommel. Ben, fight. Right, pit stop style at the side of the ring. Took me 3 minutes from diagnosis through to replacing it. Light on, he was back in the arena, right? That's a tournament saber. That's a tournament saber. It's not as, right? It's not as pretty as a shelf queen, but like, guys, nobody's looking at your saber when you're in the ring wearing the mask. Trust me. Nobody cares whether your hilt is a genuine sort of screen hilt or not.
So we moved on past the Pilgrim at this point. So at this point, you're using the Elysium with Silver Sabers.
Yeah. And I have evolutions. I have Pilgrims. You are welcome to them. If you want to buy them off me blank, I'm happy to send them to you, and I will help show you how to install them. It's just I'm neurodivergent in my own way. And I find that kind of work really tedious, because it's just, I look at it and I'm like, I should have designed it better. I don't want to look at my mistake over and over and over again. Right? It's just like, I've got a better design. It's much more fun to install, takes a lot less time. It's much more practical. And every single component on it can be replaced if it fails. Right. Now that's a tournament saber. If you wanted to buy a box of 10 sabers for your academy, now if you insist on evolutions and installed or not, sure, we can do something. But I'd be lying if I told you that this wasn't an easier thing to live with.
Yeah.
And if you've got 20 sabers and 15 students a night, then the last thing you want to have to do is 2 hours of saber repairs before you can log off. Right? It's like, again, this is what we mean. Professional. Professional means efficient. Efficient means no waste. Right? And that goes down to the design of the armor. It goes down, we could use heavier stuff, but the cosplay foam, the EVA foam is more than enough to totally remove the possibility of any significant damage. So why bother with anything more? And they'll be like, it might only last 2 or 3 years. I said, you might not be the same shape in 2 years anyway. Right? So you're going to have to replace it. Ultimately, there's nothing we make from the EVA foam that you can't take to a bespoke leather worker and have made in your size professionally And that's what you should be doing if this is what you do 4 or 5 days a week. Yeah, it's worth the money. It's worth the money. Spending 400, 500, 600 pounds, it's worth every penny, because every 10 years you age means another year for each injury to heal. It's just that simple. It gets to a point, the things that we did when we were 20 years old, it's not that we can't do them anymore. It's just that we won't be able to do anything for the 3 months afterwards anymore. Right? I can keep up with an 18-year-old for a day, but not for a week.
Yes. I will say this here, though. For us over here, there's really no, we don't have that excuse over here, right? Because used lacrosse armor is so available and so cheap. You can kit up, including your fencing mask, for about $150.
Yeah, you're lucky. You're really,
yeah.
the cheapest
That's the thing.
here are nearly
so it's going to be difficult to beat that price,
Yeah. But you've paid the price for it in a different way, haven't you? The prevalence of armor has led to a culture where technique is overlooked.
Well, I don't buy that. I don't buy that, because the thing is, no, because it wasn't until we started armoring up that we could actually do the techniques as they were intended to be done.
Very valid point.
Because if you're worried about hurting your partner, you're not going to do what you need to do.
You have to have security.
It's all about training. Whether you wear a lot of armor, and I don't think there's too much armor. The only thing about it is it's protection versus mobility. Like people say that, okay, these are too much. Yes, they're cost-wise. Yes, that's the downplay. But are they too much protection?
No,
because they don't limit you in any way, and
that's it. And completely. I can see how light they are just from the way you're holding them, right?
Yeah, so you just sit
there. They don't collapse in on themselves just because you held it the wrong way. There's nothing to it, right?
Yeah. That's the thing.
I'm gonna have to buy a pair. What have you done?
What?
What have you done?
Yeah. That
was my son's Christmas present.
Right. The gear, gear being so plentiful over here. Yes, it does. It allows people, I think what it does is it allows people to start free play before they should. Right.
That was my point.
Right. So exactly there's lots of people that if they just kind of pulled it back and worked on some things, seriously for a while, they're gonna,
let's rewind.
Go up in skill.
There was a question you asked that led to me bringing this out.
Mm-hmm.
And it led to a discussion of the material components of safety, right? Like we're talking about fire alarms and extinguishers and stuff. What do we do to make sure airbags and seatbelts, right? But essentially at the end of the day, the bottom line, again, we've got to talk about driving. We have to talk about standards of education and training and culture, because what we do is not a blood sport.
No.
It's not a blood sport. And it's a combat sport, sure, but it's not a blood sport. And, we're not looking for that moment where one person is unconscious and still taking roundhouses to the face as they slowly, in slow motion, 20 frames, make it to the floor. That's what we do in our academy to stop and to try and introduce these cultural elements of safety and technique. Is we don't let people fight. We've got level 1. Now you can do that in a day. It's basic, how to pull a blow off the head, how to move the sword from one side to another. We've got your level 2, which is how to move and lunge and do all of that stuff. And this can take people typically like 3, 4, 5, 6 months of training. And if there's special needs involved, this might take 2 years of training, right? only when they finished their level 2 assessment and done the specific partner drills, which allow us to test and look for that kind of, lack of control or lack of awareness quite often rather than lack of control. That is our safety net. That's kind of what we put in place to make sure that if I've given someone the crest to represent the academy in any ring under any rule set, that I promise that that person has it in them to get this right. And if they don't, then you can refer them back to me, right? That I think, and it does mean putting your neck out there, but then as martial artists, that shouldn't be something that we're afraid of. You're prepared to get in the ring against a bruiser, but you're not prepared to make sure your paperwork's in order, right? It's courage of a different sort. I'm terrified of accounts, but I do them, right? So we have to get this right. And it's like, people are scared. They're starting up their academies and they're like, well, if we don't let them fight, why will they come?
Right.
And it's like, well, guys, they will come because you have something to show them. You have something to teach them that they will learn to respect because you will deliver it in a beautiful way.
Right.
And if you can't do that, find someone who will show you how to do that.
Right.
Because otherwise you've only got a blood sport.
Right. And that's the thing. It's very easy to get together and bonk each other over the head. And
it's all fun and games until somebody loses a tooth.
We'll make it, there's certain of us who are, going into this thing. Now, as people start out, when people come in, and we're looking at new people are coming from non-athletic backgrounds, that brings with it all that kind of stuff. But for when we're talking about the sport, we should be talking about people who have some sort of investment in it, right? So whereas it's like you should be expected to buy the best possible equipment, right? That you can. If you're not, are you really trying that hard to be a competitor? I point this out to a lot of people. If you show up to like any sport without your gear, you're usually not allowed to play. But you can kit out for $150, right? Oh yeah, no, I'm not saying that. No, what I'm saying is, when you take this into account before you get people to kit up, right? As people begin, like even if you took our class in the ASL rule set, you're not going to start out fighting, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to start out. We're going to show you techniques. We're going to show you how to arm. We're going to show you footwork. We're going to show you distancing. Then we're going to start you on some cooperative rallies. Then we're going to build you up. Right. By the time you get to the point where you can, hopefully you could gather.
So you've been through 3 or 4 phases, right? So exactly. So level 1 for us, you don't need any equipment. We provide you with the saber. Right, you don't need any. There's no protection because there's no contact, right?
Right.
Level 2 contains the first partner exercises for which, any glove will do at the beginning. Anything's better than getting hit on the fingers, right, or on the back of the hand with a bare blade, right? But we recommend, like, you can get paintballing gloves, stuff like $10, $15. They're awful.
Yeah.
But again, they will do for light contact partner drills, which aren't intended as competitive things.
Right.
And that gives them that 6 months to consider at a certain point. There's the exercise, the circle of death. Sorry, I'll say it again. The circle of death. Right. And it's basically you stand in the middle. It's a pressure testing thing, and you have to do 30 seconds of being assaulted by everybody in that circle one by one. Right.
Yeah, that's a common. What it was, shark tank.
Yeah. It's just giggles. It's giggles. Yeah. It's fun. It terrifies them, but it also excites them. And most importantly of all, you can find people who have all the greatest technique in the world. But because they've ignored all the qigong and the breathing stuff, they panic And when they panic in that defensive mode in the ring, you can see it. And when you see it, you know, yeah, I'm not going to give you the offense. Sorry, mate. You're staying on defense for a little bit longer until you get yourself back under control. Right? So we've got all of these. And by the time they arrive in that circle, that they can't do that if they haven't got a lid, if they haven't got a mask, they haven't got gloves, they haven't got elbows and knees, because they're going to be assaulted by 6 people in turn for a total of 3 minutes. They're going to get hit a lot.
Right.
And they've got what, 7-8 months to build up that equipment. And at that point, they can say, no, I've got my saber. And this is the combat path with all the assessments that you have to satisfy in order to be able to qualify to compete, to be on the team, to apply to be on the display team and stuff. But we realize now also, and those people have to buy that expensive kit because their professional careers depend on their continued ability to perform, right? And we do have a lot of actors and dancers and musicians and people who are theatrically inclined getting involved in this as their first sort of martial experience. That path is very much where those people are going. But there aren't enough of them to make a business that can sustain any of us full time, right?
Yet. No.
Without all of the people who need to be happier and healthier and who have chosen LED Saber to be the vehicle through which they're going to achieve that change in their life. Now, a lot of them are actually in a position where they have some financial stability. A lot of them are the only people who have disposable income. Because guess what? Your waiters and waitresses and theater workers they're broke.
Yeah.
They're broke. I mean, when was the last time you came across a martial artist who had actually met with money?
Mm-hmm.
They're rare, right? Yeah. They are rarely rare. You chose that life because you're not designed for that life.
Right. Yeah.
So
it's not, you're not getting into it to get rich.
Right. So you've got, like, for every 10 people that are prepared to take that journey to wherever it takes them, there's maybe 100 people who just want to turn up every day, do the movements, get involved, have fun, and burn some calories. And they are absolutely integral because they actually are the ones who provide the data that writes the syllabus that propels this lot further, right? That's where we see significant changes of the syllabus having to come in, because this lot are actually working much later in syllabus thing. They've covered the basics 7 years ago. They don't need it revised. They need equipment. This lot over here, that's the cheap gloves, that's the cheap masks, that's the stuff just to stop them from getting hurt. If it slows them down, it doesn't matter too much. All right, they're not going to pay £600 for a pair of gloves. It's not going to happen. Right, they're not going to buy a hood for their mask. That's not going to happen either. Yeah, and any chest protection that, you know, goes into triple figures, not going to happen. Yeah, especially, I mean, dude, you know, we here in the UK, it is an absolute goddamn roller coaster at the moment. And I can't tell you how unfair it is to make any long-term demands of your students, because I think we lost 40% of our students when Brexit hit. They had to leave the country. This is London. London, you know, is the English are a minority here. We have people from all over the world. It is one of the most cosmopolitan sort of capital cities in the world, and it's completely blended. There's no segregated communities or whatever. It's completely blended, and a lot of people study here and what have you, and the situation's changed massively. I have teachers who feed the schools. The kids who come into their classroom are fed by the teachers because there's nothing at home for breakfast. This is the UK. And we're talking about £600 gloves, right? People need something to feel good about. And I think another financial commitment isn't going to help. We just got to make it easy. He's got to make it easy and fun, right?
No,
And
no, 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 no. Look, I'm not saying that anybody who tries this should get that out. But on the other hand, as much as we all complain about money, when we have a hobby like this, we find the money,
yeah.
It's like,
I mean, I
I
guess,
don't care what you say, you will find the money,
but you
and
have to put that. You have to ring fence it though. Like
yeah,
for
but see,
example,
that's the
if you
thing.
don't, yeah,
That's
if
the
you
thing.
don't
You
turn around
want
and say,
what you need to do, like I said, there's, when we've talked about standards and stuff like that. But again, whether you're talking about choreography, whether you're talking about sport or anything like that, as I said before, the main fact of the matter is we're taking something visually from the movies and we're putting it into reality. And by doing that, like in choreography, and we're running out of time, so unfortunately we didn't get to it, but you have to be able to, I tried to do this, you have to be able to do all the things that you want your character to do, unless of course you can hire stunt people, right? But this is the thing, if you're going into a live performance of choreography, and I see this all the time with amateur choreographies, like, don't try to do anything really amazing. That's totally out of your ability. Don't rely on force powers and all this other stuff. You can take these simple little things. I mean, Errol Flynn created, I don't know how many fight sequences out of 4 strikes, right?
wait, they were the best 4 strikes.
Yeah, right. But that's the thing. You don't need much, right?
No.
And
no.
even
but
if
this comes back again, right? Now this you brought us in a circle because we're back to the original trilogy again. See?
Yeah.
You don't need much. And let me put it to you that the most hypnotic thing for any human being to observe on that stage is not the glitter, but is the raw human experience. That look on the face that sells the defense. That is what captures the imagination. That's what makes children's mouths hang open. It's not just the tumbling and the cartwheels and stuff, because all of that just disappears into the background. We live in a digital world. You know, I've got YouTube on my phone, right? What difference does it make if I'm watching it on this or over there?
Yeah.
I want to see something real, right?
I think one of the things that it is about is like people, it's not just about this. Like here's one of my big pet peeves of all these choreographies is the stopping the fight and circling each other like badasses, right? Which they're obviously doing because they need a breather, right? But here's my point. If you're tired, be tired, right? Yeah. Show that you're tired, right? Because that's what infuses reality into a fight sequence, is not you looking like a badass. Everybody wants to look like a badass. That's the problem, right?
Yeah.
But look at Jackie Chan. Jackie Chan is constantly getting hit in the face. That's his whole shtick, is that, yeah, sure, he's going to get out of this fight, but he's going to get his hands slammed in a ladder. Yeah. He's going to fall off a 2-story building.
So what are you talking about again? You're back to culture. You're talking about people who identify or want to identify with being badass.
But not only this, and this is what we're talking about here, is that, and I think this is what we're kind of going, is that really where the lightsaber exists is in an interesting place for martial arts in general, because our martial arts and our training is generally a practice and culture of violence, which is something that is undesirable for civilized people to be engaging in, right? And so what we do is we take it out of that context and we put it into other contexts. We have now separated it so far from actual combat, right? From actual violence, real violence, right? Sure, a lightsaber can really hurt somebody, but nobody is going around town robbing people with a lightsaber. If they were, you almost would be like, you know what? I'm just going to give you my money because.
Hey, Dad, hold my beer.
Holy crap! Wow. just take it.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, right.
Bravo. But that's the thing, and it allows people. We're talking about the gear and people fighting before is really necessary and all this other stuff, right? That all comes from that, right? Because we're coming to this thing. And no longer is there that fear of violence. No longer is there that pit in your stomach and that worry, right? Now, yes, these communities can tumble and get a little political and all that kind of stuff, but the activity itself causes wonder. Whatever the people are latching onto. And let's just remember, lightsabers is not the main point of the original trilogy. Right? They're just an add-on. This is just one of those things that we've picked out of because when we were kids, they captured our imagination. Right? And there was all
the feedback from the audience has created the branching narratives, right?
And then of course we redoing the movie with our toys, right?
But here's the thing, though, right? So it is about culture. Because really, what is if we look at the story of Star Wars about redemption and about, Star Trek talks about what we can do as a species, and it inspires us to work together as a group. But Star Wars is very much about a collection of personal stories, about the individual obstacles that we have to face. It's got the bigger picture as well. And I guess that's why there is so much toxicity in the Star Wars fandom, relatively speaking. And from the corporate stance, Disney's so much more open than Paramount is. But if you look at the fan bases, right, Star Wars is, for some reason, the Sith seem to inspire.
Oh,
I get it. It's badass, right? I get it. They're hardcore. Right? Batman talks like this. But at the same time, where is my army of healers?
Well, right. Well, the reason you don't have an army of healers is because, I guess MASH ran for a very long time, but it's not.
Yeah, and it was a comedy.
But it has to be a comedy, It has to be a comedy
right?
because the drama. We don't want to, and this is really the thing. We don't want to watch stuff about people dying of illness and injury.
No.
Like, oh God,
it's okay, but
we want to be able to fight the bad guy,
long, right?
To grab him by the throat.
But this is the whole point. The bad guy learned to heal. The bad guy, when do we see force healing in the entire trilogy, in the entire 3 trilogies? When do we see the ability to save life in that way? So that narrative, the idea that even the most toxic, if they do the work, they can transform themselves into beings that can project light across the universe. That's the personal story of Star Wars. And, on an individual level, that hard work is picking up your saber and doing your goddamn 100 head cuts. I don't want to hear a peep. I don't want to hear it. Do them, right? That's the hard work that you need to do in order to actually cultivate some discipline in that soul to allow you the tools to go and get what you want in life. Because guess what? It's safe in here. It's totally safe. We're going to put you in the ring. We're going to put mask and gloves on you. It's going to be scary, but you're going to love it. And when you see that actually scary things aren't that scary, if you just sort of think about them and do them carefully, then maybe there's other things we can do together that feel like a little bit scary, but actually, maybe we should just all get along and try working together on some stuff.
Well, yeah, that's the goal, to all of this. And
It's terrifying.
Lots of things are saying, like, oh yes, the fandom is toxic and everything like that. But I disagree. If you look at the footage from Star Wars Celebration, right? That's the fandom, right? You've got toxic elements in society out there who are always going to be picking on everything. Self-righteousness is, nobody has a patent on self-righteousness, right? And everybody's going to come in there and complain about this, that, and the other. Oh, like, I can't believe people my age would be complaining about anything that is being put out as far as Star Wars goes, because it's all so much better than the crap we got after the Ewoks movie. Look, come on. Like, we had literal garbage.
Listen. No. I must inquire as to whether you've spent any time with the first few seasons of Red Dwarf, because I was
Red
like
Dwarf?
13. Yeah. Right.
Oh, I remember Red Dwarf. Yeah.
Yeah. We were 13.
I try not to go back to those things, because every time I do, it's like the magic is lost, because I saw them when I was a kid and everything was new and awesome. And I was like, yeah. And then I see it again and I go, oh.
Like, some stuff is so bad it stays. It's eternal.
Yeah, that's true. Yes, there's that stuff. There's that stuff. Right.
I mean, you could take early episodes of Star Trek and you could do them at the local pub and amateur theater. And literally, you just get some bits of cardboard and hold them up, and there's someone in the background doing special effects. Ooh.
You wouldn't even need to. All you would need to do is set up a bunch of chairs and tables in the shape of the bridge, and
off you go. Right.
Yeah,
that's what I'm talking about.
Right.
We can bring that to martial arts. I think
that's already there. I think that's already there, and it's just about giving it a name and giving it a body. Something.
And a lightsaber.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's a whole new discussion, and I think that's a discussion that would require sort of a larger forum.
The next time.
Yep. Let's talk to some folks, see where they're at, and let's see if we can't create a forum of some sort.
Yes, sirree. All right. Well, that we did a nice long show here. Thank you, Faisal, for coming by.
That's all good, man. It's late here. I'm gonna go and chill.
Yes. So we will sign off here for tonight. Thank you, Ben, for showing up. Thank you for everybody who's watching at home.
Good to see you again, Ben.
Remember, patience, practice, perseverance. Happy sabering. All right.